Welcome to the very first episode of the Fenway Focus. My name is Derrik Maguire, and I am here with my co-host, Jason Stellakis. We will dive into what this show is, who we are, and everything. But first, we want to just start off by giving some introductions on ourselves, who we are, why we're doing this, which we'll probably get more in depth later on. But first, just a short introduction, and I'll hand it off to my co-host, Jason. So, Jason, introduce yourself, who you are, and whatever you want to add.
I appreciate you, Derrik. I'm Jason. I'm a co-host of the Fenway Focus. Do a bunch of other things outside of this. I do Ball Blab, which is another podcast. Go check it out. Self-plug. Woo woo. I do stuff for Beyond the Monster too, occasionally. But the main part is I'm at school too, so I'm doing a bunch of work at Syracuse. But along with Derrik, I'm very excited to start something like this, and I can't wait for where this is gonna go.
Definitely. And I'll also add for you, because I know you said you go to Syracuse, you are a sports broadcasting major, like myself. As I'm Derrik Maguire. I am also a college student, that kind of infers we're both sports broadcasting majors. I go to Dean College. It is a college in Franklin, Massachusetts, and so I'm a little bit closer to the Red Sox. And I'm excited to get this going. I am a part of the Pesky Report. I am on the minor league show for the Pesky Report. Kind of, I guess you could say hosting. I do the intro and outro, but I don't really call myself a host, if that makes sense, in terms of I feel like we're kind of just a big family on the minor league show, so I don't like calling myself necessarily the host because it feels like I'm kind of singling myself out a little bit. So I do that. I'm part of that, so check that out. That'll be really starting once this baseball season starts, because we haven't had a ton to talk about in the offseason there. This idea, the show with Jason, was something that we both really, we're excited to put our minds together. We really, we're like, okay, we'd love to do something, and this is kind of a big thing for us. Kind of jumping out and being like, okay, let's start a show. And then it was, what are we going to call it? And eventually we came up with the name of the Fenway Focus. It was a bit of a process trying to figure out names and whatnot, but we've got it. We're sticking with it, and that is the name of the show, the Fenway Focus. Outside of that, I'll also add I'm also not just a sports broadcasting major. I'm a double major. I'm also, as of recently, have added a double major in athletic coaching. So if any of the coaching decisions, such as Carlos Fablis last year, come into question, hopefully I will be able to answer them. That's not what an athletic coaching major is for, but maybe I can bring some expertise to that, because Carlos Fablis was terrible last year at rounding everyone in, when the outfielder already got the ball into the infield. I'm joking, obviously, but...
Are you?
Maybe not. But no, it's something that I think we're both very excited to get into. As this is episode 1, we'll kind of run you through, obviously just the introductions, we'll run you through the show, what a typical show will look like in terms of, how it's going to roll. We also are going to talk about our show schedule in terms of the scheduling of our shows, when you expect to hear new shows from us, new podcasts, new episodes. Also, what the shows are going to entail outside of just topics, what are really going to want to get into, sink our teeth into what we're going to cover, because this is a Red Sox focused show, but it will not be specifically 100% Red Sox. We will dabble elsewhere as well, around the baseball world and even other Boston sports at times. Also, too, we will be covering what platforms we're going to be on, what content you'll get from us on different platforms, and whatnot, and a couple other things too we're going to touch here in episode 1, closing off with some roster predictions, as we will be making our opening day roster predictions. Now, I will give a little bit of a heads up. We are recording this in advance to when it is going out, as we still get a couple of the details set up behind the scenes. Everything kind of in the public eye is all set. We're just getting a couple behind the scenes things done, so we're recording a little bit ahead of time. So if someone gets injured in the next 5 days and we put them on the opening day roster, that's why. I don't wish any injuries. I'm not trying to say anyone will get injured, but just as a disclaimer, put that out there now.
Right. I mean, you alluded to it before. We're still working on things behind the scenes, too. You might think, oh, they're just doing a podcast. No, and that's what we're kind of here trying to tell everybody. This is not just a podcast. This is kind of a mini brand. We're going to get some content out on various social media platforms, whether it's exclusive clips or I guess you can call I don't know what they call it, but in YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok, all those will have content there. And yeah, like you said, injuries happen to players. Someone could go down tomorrow. The Giolito news came in an instant. So
yeah,
things like that happen. And unfortunately, ideally we'd be doing it later, but just scheduling wise, this is perfect. And we'll get into more later. So yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
I'm excited.
Too, someone can sleep on the wrong side of the bed and oh, nope, they got a pinched nerve. They're out for 2 weeks. And it's well, you never know, right? First things first, though, we do want to kind of touch on the show schedule as a whole. Obviously, we're talking about the podcast in general here in terms of just specifically the podcast. We will be trying to get onto Apple Podcasts as soon as possible. We cannot guarantee that it will be when this episode goes up, but we are working on that behind the scenes. That's one of the things we're still working on, but we should be up on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and as many other podcast sites that we know of or that we can get onto. We're going to try our best to try and make sure we're on as many as possible before this episode goes up. If we're not on something yet, we will try to be, or just reach out to us on Twitter and be like, hey, I use this podcast site, you're not there, find a way to get on there, and we will do our due diligence and do our best and try and get on there as soon as possible. Apple Podcasts is a little bit of a process because you have to have your Apple ID, and then you got to wait 2 weeks in review or whatnot, so that will be soon, but we've got to kind of just bide our time with that. As we're still, like I said, working on some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Show schedules, we are planning on 2 podcasts a week. A weekend show, which will cover, we call it the weekend show. It'll cover the weekend series, hence weekend show. That will typically air on Mondays, as most weekend series end on Sundays. If there's an off day on a Monday, you may or may not, depending on the week, it could hold off till a Tuesday. If that is the case, obviously it will be mentioned in the midweek show prior, or if not, it will be tweeted out from our Twitter/X account, whatever you want to call it. That will be kind of our base for information about the show. If there's a scheduling change for the week or whatnot, that's where you will hear it from. So that's the weekend show. And then we will have our midweek show where we kind of recap the in-week series, whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever series is in the middle of the week. That's what the midweek show will be for. And then you look at overall, that's going to kind of be the bulk of our podcast. I think, not the bulk, that is what we're going to be podcasting. It's going to kind of be the bulk of our content in terms of its longer form and whatnot. I don't know if you have anything to add onto that, Jason, outside of it kind of being, like I said, the bulk in terms of longer form and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I echo everything you say, and you want to go into specifics right now?
Yeah, we can go into specifics if you want.
Right, just general, basic rundown. So, typically a weekend show, or both the weekend show and the midweek show, will consist of a series recap, kind of talking about what happened in the series and our thoughts and reactions behind it. And then series predictions would be, us going to the next series and making our predictions. And part of the series recap is also highlighting what we said in our series prediction video podcast the week before. So we'll kind of be doing that in both the weekend show and the midweek show. But we want to add some segments, and there'll be wacky names for them. We'll figure all that fun stuff later. But for the weekend show, we're usually gonna have kind of we want to talk about this is Red Sox based. It's not just Red Sox based. It's baseball based. We want to get some more minor league, I guess, recaps into it, I guess. We'll recap stuff that's going on in the Red Sox minor leagues, and not even just the Red Sox minor leagues. We can go to if there's a player that's like breaking out, we'll go and talk about that. Or even if Red Sox, I don't know, if Marcelo Maguire is raking right now, we'll touch up on that. Then that's that. And then the other thing we have is kind of like the player of the week, kind of recapping the weekend. Who to us sticks out as who, in our eyes, was the player that stood out the most, whether it be Red Sox or not. I think it'll probably be more Red Sox based. But yeah, Derrik, you want to add some thoughts there and then maybe talk about the midweek show too?
Yeah, so we kind of roll with player of the week. There's a good chance we might end up doing a player and a pitcher of the week in terms of like, you know how MLB awards work and how they have like, their player of the week, pitcher of the week. I don't know if they have rookie of the week. I know they have rookie of the month. So that's kind of something we're looking at doing in terms of, we feel like everyone does, series MVP, this, series MVP, that. We kind of want to do it differently. And it's not just going to be a Red Sox limited award. It's going to be player of the week. It can be Red Sox. Sometimes it will be. Sometimes it won't be. Sometimes if, Ellie De La Cruz is having some insane week where he's hit 5 homers and has like 5 stolen bases and is playing elite defense, it's like, okay, that's someone we want to talk about. And this is where we're Red Sox focused, but it's not necessarily going to be Red Sox, right? If the Red Sox are, struggling, yes, we'll give you the Red Sox take in our series recaps and series predictions, but let's be honest, who wants to listen to something about a team that sucks for, 45 minutes, which is the goal for the podcast. 45 minutes. We don't want you guys to have to listen, over so long because this podcast takes forever to listen to because it's such a long episode. We know you guys aren't going to want to listen to, us talking, the Red Sox aren't doing well, blah, 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 for 45 minutes. We get it. If they're good, obviously, it's great, and you'll probably want to hear it, but we don't want to be the Debbie Downers. The Red Sox still are struggling. It gets boring after a while. So it is Red Sox focused, but we will be branching out to baseball, MLB, minor leagues, not just MLB and MLB affiliates. College baseball. Baseball in Japan, if something big is happening in Japan.
NPB, KBO.
NPB, KBO. Or, heck, maybe there's just, like, some fun baseball story. I know, obviously not now, but when the Olympics come to the U.S. in, 4 years, is it? Like, baseball's going to be in the Olympics. Like, World Baseball Classic, there's going to be World Baseball Classic qualifiers. Like, that's all stuff we're open to talking about, right? If it's a big enough story, if it's something that we think is interesting and intriguing, we're going to talk about it, and we will find spots in our shows to talk about. Whether it's player of the week, like I said, we said player of the week. Heck, if Roki Sasaki's having pitches a no-hitter in Japan, like he did, and then the next week comes out in, so in 2022, Roki Sasaki had this 2 back-to-back starts, pitches a perfect game with a no-hitter. I don't know if it was no-hitter or a perfect game, I forget, but it was one of the two. I think it was a perfect game with 19 strikeouts in one start. And then his next start, he goes the first 8 innings without giving up a hit. And then he got pulled after 8 innings just because he had thrown so many pitches. But he threw 17 straight perfect innings, right? That's something where, like, if we get to, like, our player of the month and something like that's happening in Japan where someone's going outrageous, heck, we'll talk about them, right? Because it is a baseball story and it's baseball story going on. So, yes, Red Sox focused, but not necessarily just Red Sox. If the stories are big enough, we'll go elsewhere. Because we have our Red Sox series recaps, our series predictions. So it's going to be Red Sox.
Right.
The midweek show.
Yeah, like all our knowledge. Can I add something quickly?
Yeah.
All our knowledge, our primary knowledge is Red Sox, but it's such a narrow fan base, I guess. There are 32 teams and there are other teams and there are people we want to, kind of expand our audience to. I'll even break that term too. A lot of what expanding brands or stuff these days is like you got to expand, and you got to expand by talking about different things. And we love baseball too, along with the Red Sox. So, kind of alluding to everything what you said, we're definitely open to, and we will talk about other sports. So you were saying something about the midweek show. Why don't you tell everybody what the midweek show is going to be?
Well, our midweek show, it's similar. We have the series predictions and series recaps, but we have an especially designed. We're going to have a specially signed part of the show that we're kind of going to title News and Notes or something alongside of that, which is essentially going to be, hey, we're both going to come in, find something to talk about in the baseball world. something that we think is important, we think is interesting, intriguing, whatever it is from the baseball world. It can be Red Sox related, but this is most of the time probably going to be something that isn't Red Sox related. Heck, maybe it's not even baseball related. Maybe, I don't know, the Bruins win some, playoff series that's at the in the middle of June that
Knock
we're
on
not
wood.
trying to jinx, or the Celtics win a playoff series, in mid to late June. I'm not trying to jinx anything, but, stuff like that. Or, heck, maybe there's something big going on in the football world. We might talk about that. It's just basically something sports-related, most likely baseball, but occasionally could be something else that we feel is important and needs to and should be brought to light. And it's something, too, it's a little bit different. We don't want to, like Jason, you were saying, and I've said it, we don't want to be just Red Sox related. It's just Red Sox only. Like you said, we do want to expand, and that's something down the road we might look at expanding. That's way down the road. But we need to put those legs in early. We can't just randomly expand later on.
Right.
We kind of need to build to that,
right.
And that's like part of our way to building to that.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly.
Enough said.
Exactly. And too, when you look at like our midweek show, we're also bringing one of I think my and Jason's favorite segments into the fold. We are going with Stat of the Week, as I will provide a stat of the week. It could be anything. It could be something from.
I can
something
too.
That's just, yeah. Oh yeah. Jason definitely can too. It's kind of my thing.
That's Derrik's MO, but occasionally I'll chime in here and there.
Exactly, yeah, and you can. No, there's nothing wrong with that. We're totally down. We have 2 stats of the week then. But it's gonna be something. It used to kind of just be like trivia, something trivia related in terms of stats, or what does this stat mean, or it could just be a fun stat, something that's interesting, or it could be, hey, like this player, it could just be something weird and funny, like this player bats 500. This Red Sox player bats 500 when facing left-handed pitching in Angel Stadium. Left-handed pitching that throws under 95 miles. It could just be something random and weird, something that's fun. It's not necessarily a, hey, like, this is something super important. It can be something super important. It could also be something fun, whatever it is, right? Like, it could be, hey, Juan Soto last year hit, 250 at Petco Park, which I don't know exactly what it was, but it was a lot worse than what he typically hits. This year at Yankee Stadium, he's hitting 330. Lord, please don't let that happen, but, like, you never know. If it does, that might be a stat of the week, right? A stat of the week could be, hey, what does, this stat mean? Obviously, we both know what the stat BABIP is, batting average on balls in play, but it could be just, I'm using it as an example, hey, what do you think this means? We had a stat, actually, BACON, BACON, batting average on contact. What does BACON stand for? Obviously, I just told you, but, something like that, basically. Who do you think is the leader in batting average on contact? Or who do you think is the leader in BACON, right? Something that's fun, right? Does it necessarily mean anything? Not really, in terms of there's no context, but it's fun, right? And I think that's kind of the point of it.
Right, and I mean, I guess you can call us entertainment / news / sports, obviously, but we're mixing a little bit of everything in, and like I said before, I mean, this is a small start, and we're just gonna have fun with it too, and we're gonna produce so much content on various social media platforms, probably every other day. Whether it be an exclusive segment, or I was talking to you, maybe we do like a tier quiz, something simple as that. And I think Derek also going to echo this, but if you guys have any feedback, if you're still listening, feel free to reach out. Any criticism, is in my opinion constructive as we try to build this brand. Someone typing "you suck." Thanks for listening. So, I'm fine with that too. So, not saying to go type in "you suck," but we're open to any feedback. We're open to any feedback, and if you have any suggestions for the show, don't hesitate to DM us or just add us on Twitter.
Yeah, and in terms of talking about Twitter, like I said, it is going to be our main information hub. If there's any updates on the show, heck, maybe like we're sick and we have to like miss a show because like we're both like dying of like some like random like cold or whatnot, and like change of seasons or something, or maybe a show, maybe there's an off day on Monday, so instead of recording on a Sunday night, maybe we push it back to Monday and it goes up on a Tuesday instead. Anything like that sort of thing, that will be to find on Twitter. If it's planned, we might even talk about it in, the midweek show. If, hey, the weekend show's not going on until Tuesday, if it's something like that that's planned, we might talk about it in our midweek show. But most of that stuff, well, you'll find it on Twitter anyways. But, if for information, what's going on with us, that's going to be Twitter. We're going to put a emphasis on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels. It's going to be basically the same thing. It'll just be uploaded to different places, really. But we'll be putting up content there. It'll mostly be separate content from the podcast, although occasionally maybe if there's a clip from the podcast that, is something that we think is going to make for a really good TikTok, we might put it up there. But most of the time it will be kind of separate content, something different, maybe it's a take we have, a quick, take on something that we want to get out there, but it doesn't really fit in terms of the flow of the conversation in a podcast or something. That's where you'll kind of find extra stuff. Maybe you'll also find probably, maybe, hey, I know Jason, you might not be the biggest soccer fan. I am, so, hey, I have a take on soccer. That might be something we throw on like a TikTok, right? Because it's short, quick to the point, and doesn't really fit in terms of the flow of our conversation on a podcast, right? So it's gonna be used for external content. We'll use for baseball stuff too, Red Sox baseball too as well, obviously. Like I said, it still will be Red Sox focused and baseball focused, but we're not afraid to touch other subjects as well, right? And I think that's kind of the whole point.
Yep.
And the big key that we're kind of letting you guys in on is, we're not afraid to touch. If heck, if you're listening to the show and 1 week, we talk about, we're talking about 1 week we're talking about something, whatever, and you say, hey, you guys didn't talk about this, right? What are your thoughts on it? We may just respond to you, or maybe we'll make it into a TikTok, or maybe we'll include it in our next podcast, right? If it's something that big, right? So don't be afraid to be like, hey, can you guys talk about this? Or what are your thoughts on this? Maybe we've touched on it in a TikTok or in a podcast. Maybe we haven't. Maybe we can. And I think that's kind of another thing too. It's, if there's, because, we're both Red Sox fans. Obviously, Jason, you live in the Boston area. You're going to school in Syracuse. So, you're not too far from Boston. I go to school in Franklin, Mass. I'm not far from Boston, although I do live in Florida in the summertime. But let's say there's something going on with, I don't know, the Colorado Rockies, right? Let's be honest. Are there two of us really watching that many Colorado Rockies games? No. But if there's something, let's say Ryan McMahon's having a really good week and he's, but we don't talk about it on the show during our Player of the Week. Maybe we just didn't recognize it, or maybe we didn't feel it was super duper important. But you say, hey, what about Ryan McMahon? He had a very good week. We're more than willing to, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. We're willing to discuss that and not just be Red Sox focused. And it's also, too, like, we don't want to have the show of, I don't know, let's say the Red Sox are on a 10-game losing streak, right? We don't want to be, the Red Sox lost again, blah, 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 the team sucks, da-da-da-da-da. Like, you could go to sports radio to just get hot takes, or the team sucks, or blah, blah, blah. You go anywhere else for that. We want to give you guys something that's actually worth listening to. And to do that, we also realize, we can't just be the same as everyone. If the team's losing, and it's clear that the team's losing because the starting pitching sucks, you could hear that anywhere. We're not giving you anything new, and that's something you can probably see with your own eyes. So maybe we're going to give you something that you can't see. Maybe, we're getting to the trade deadline, and everyone's like, oh, maybe the Red Sox should trade for, I don't know, I was going to say Dylan Cease, but he just got traded, so, but some starting pitcher, right? But maybe Jason and I have a guy that no one's talking about, right? That, maybe this guy could be interesting, right? And just bring up this stuff out. Or maybe you guys, we pose the question to you guys. Is there any starting pitcher that's not being talked about that you would like the Red Sox to trade for? Or you would like to see your team trade for if you're not a Red Sox fan and you somehow happen to tune in, right? Something along those lines. And that's kind of what we're looking to do. And like I said, we go back to kind of the platforms and whatnot. Twitter is going to be kind of our main information hub. We'll post some of the, TikToks and whatnot onto Twitter, but Twitter is going to be the main information hub and where we're going to kind of post out our episodes and whatnot. we put out an episode, we'll post it out on Twitter and whatnot. So like I said, main information hub. Your TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and occasionally maybe even YouTube videos as well at some point. That's gonna be stuff separate from the podcast more often than not. That's where it'll be extra content, kind of not necessarily exclusive, because it's not. Maybe the YouTube videos might be exclusive to just YouTube videos, but not necessarily exclusive content, but it's content you won't be getting on the podcast. It'll 95% of the time, if not more, it'll be content that's not on the podcast. So you'll also have a reason. It won't just be, oh, you listen to the podcast so you don't need to check the TikTok. There will likely be other stuff on other social media platforms as well.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
You want to move on?
Yeah, I think it is actually a good time to move on as we're getting close. We don't want to go too far over half an hour here because, like I said, it's an intro episode. But we do want to talk about some Red Sox roster stuff. We want to give you guys a little bit of, some stuff before. We're going to at least give you a little bit of content, a little bit of maybe a preview, I guess. Sneak peek, a little bit. We're going to talk some Red Sox roster. Obviously, like I said early on in the show, we're recording a little bit before this goes out, a few days. So something happens, don't blame us. But also, fair warning, if someone gets injured and we put them, that's because we recorded a few days in advance. So we are pretty much in agreement on our 26-man roster. Our roster contains, on the pitching side, Brian Bayo, Nick Pivetta, Cutter Crawford, Tanner Houck, Garrett Whitlock, in kind of rotation spots pretty much. Bullpen's going to be Kenley Jansen, Chris Martin, Brendan Bernardino, Josh Jankowski, Isaiah Campbell, Justin Slayton, Greg Weissert, and then we have Chris Murphy there. And then on the positional player side of things, we have Connor Wong and Reese Maguire as the catchers. Our infielders are Tristan Casas, Rafael Devers, Trevor Story. We have Pablo Reyes. What we have at second base? We had Valdez, right?
We had Valdez and Reyes.
Reyes, and then we had Bobby Dahlbeck on the bench.
Which we'll get into it in a second. The outfield, Rafaela,
Duran, O'Neill, Masataka Yoshida, and then Wilyer Abreu. So we'll get into a little bit. First things first, obviously, I think we want to talk about kind of the Dahlbeck situation, and this is somewhat relevant to Rob Refsnyder getting injured. And it seems like he's going to miss opening day. That's kind of what's been put out, that he's not going to be ready for opening day. So that's what we're going with. If there's any new information and he can make it, that'd be great, but that we don't have that information now.
No, he has a fractured toe, so I highly doubt.
I highly doubt it, but hey, maybe he's got superhuman healing. Who knows? But so
he won't be an opening day. No way. No way.
No. But we'll talk about Bobby Dahlbeck here because it's a guy who, I think Jason alluded to this before the show when just the two of us were talking, where he's very versatile. Last year in Worcester, he played all over the place. I think he played pretty much I know he played right field. He played short, first. I think he may have even played second base. I know he played third. He just kind of played all over the place last year in AAA. And we're thinking with Refsnyder not being on the team, with CJ Cron at this point he's only played one spring training game for the Red Sox. And
one or two, yeah.
We don't really know what's going on with him in terms of he's played one game's not. You can't make a decision on one game, and we don't know how the Red Sox feel about him in camp or anything like that. So we've decided to exclude him and needing a backup first baseman. And also Dahlbeck can play third, which is nice, so Pablo Reyes doesn't have to play third. We've kind of went with Dahlbeck. However, we did have other options in terms of the bench piece. Because Pablo Reyes has been getting has got reps at first occasionally. We looked at maybe a Romy Gonzalez if they weren't necessarily looking for a backup first baseman. David Hamilton was a name that's brought up because he's kind of your prototypical bench guy, speed. Although he is a lefty, he can play. He's played a little bit of outfield in the past, so he's versatile. Although Romy is as well. That's why we kind of would put him over Dahlbeck. Over Hamilton. And there's not really anyone else position player-wise that we kind of felt confident with. I don't know what you think, Jason, in terms of that, if you want to kind of share what your thoughts are.
No, I echo everything you said, but at the end of the day, this is one of the better roster problems to have because you have guys. We're not debating who's going to be in the starting lineup anymore. We're kind of debating who's going to be that bench piece, which we could be debating like last year, who the heck's your opening day shortstop? And it was Kike, and we were like, oh, we don't know. At least we have some guys who we know are going to be platoon guys or going to be guys who are everyday regulars. And I think, personally, there are only two positions where there's going to be a consistent platoon. The first position's right field. I think O'Neill and Willie Abreu will platoon there just because O'Neill is not known to be the most healthy, especially in the past 3 years. He got MVP votes in 21, but really hasn't been fully healthy ever since. And then the other position is second base. I think they'll platoon Valdez with Reyes. If Bobby D comes in, maybe they'll sprinkle him in. And if Casas needs a day off his feet, they'll put in either a Reyes or a Dahlbeck. However, they're going to do it. They'll figure it out. And in the outfield, too, you have Yoshida, who is definitely going to serve as the DH primarily. To begin the year, he'll play some outfield, not too much outfield. They want to probably maximize his playing days because last year he needed like an off day almost every like 4 or 5 games. It seemed like.
Especially once he started to wear down by the end of the season.
He looked gassed in August. Granted, yes, the WBC definitely didn't help. And then the fact that it was his first MLB season also didn't help, but I heard he got in better shape, like all these guys have. He's kind of sneak peeked. No, I don't want to say sneak peek, but he has experience of what a full MLB season is going to be like. So I think in terms of that, he'll be better. But
because he was great in the first half last year.
Oh yeah, he was Mr. Streaky. A lot of when he was hot, he was molten lava hot. When he was cold, he was Antarctica cold. I don't know.
Ground ball to the second baseman cold.
Ground ball on a high pitches too. He turned anything he saw to a ground ball, which is like.
Hey, at least he didn't strike out.
That is true. He had that stretch at one point where he didn't swing and miss at anything.
Oh my god! And the only thing I asked just because I want to see it. So this is a little bit fun fact. Masataka Yoshida in his entire career, including the NPB, has never swung at a 3-0 pitch.
Good. I agree with that.
Can we get it just one time? Bases, juice, just G-hack, just hacking at it. Like, I need to see it one time. Just once.
I mean, Cora likes to see these guys being aggressive, We see that all the time.
Yeah, we see it all the time.
So, I mean, to your point, yeah, I think, Yoshida's going to be better. He did bat, 285 last year. Power, probably, the best you'll probably see out of him is 20 home runs and maybe 25. I don't know. You never know.
Depends on how he holds up throughout the year.
Yep. Maybe over 300 average. That's the best. 300 average on base, over 850. Oh, Jesus. No. OPS over 850. Oh God, no. OPS, Jesus. Oh, first episode, I'm already rusty. No. OPS over probably 850, probably in an ideal Yoshida world, and an on base, a 400. On a great season from him.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, it's just basically kind of keeping him like fresh. Basically, I think that's fresh, ready to go. Stopping from him getting fatigued. We do want to touch on the catcher situation because I think Connor Wong's probably is a lock for the roster. It seems like Reese Maguire's a lock, although me and Jason Jason and I proper English. English is not my strong suit. We'll get that out there now. Jason and I kind of agree on the fact that what has Reese Maguire really done to earn his spot so far in spring training? Because he has not looked good and, he's not really that good at anything. He's okay, but, would you take your kind of defensive mastermind and Roberto Perez, who can manage a pitching staff really, really well, Or would you rather have, like, Reese Maguire who's, like, okay, but, like, he can't throw anyone out, like, really. He's not Kevin Pilecki, but, like, doesn't throw out a ton of guys, and, you know, not the greatest framer, and not, like, doesn't really hit. Like, he'll hit a couple singles, and, like, that's it. And it's, like, at that point, I think we're both expecting Reese Maguire. That's why we picked him. But would we rather have Reese Maguire? I think is a totally different question.
I think if it was completely up to Breslow, he'd do Roberto Perez. Hot take. Because Roberto Perez is a huge part of pitching development. When he was with, what team was he on? San Fran? Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, Perez.
No, Perez.
Oh, Perez. Oh, I thought you were talking about Breslow. I was like, wait, what?
No.
No, Perez. Yeah, San Fran.
No, is this guy an idiot?
He was with Bailey in San Fran.
He was with Bailey, right? So, in terms of development, yeah, it's gonna be Perez is the ideal guy. He's a guy, and you're gonna have to bat ninth, and he's one of the few guys who I'm willing to sacrifice offense for defense and development. Because in reality, the Red Sox aren't going to be that good this year, and then that's just reality. I think the front office knows that.
But even if they are good, that's a veteran leader.
He's a vet. They don't have any veteran leaders either. Story, Devers is not a leader.
Devers is probably a leader, but like he's more like a lead by example kind of guy.
They don't have a Justin Turner guy.
Yeah,
they don't have
a veteran, like a veteran, right?
They need a veteran. And I think if it was up to me, Roberto Perez is like Maguire's playing like he has a spot locked up, which is like ugh. I don't like it at all.
And then he has to bunt like once every like 20 plate appearances.
But the problem is Perez was injured. Yeah. You have you do have some AAA depth.
Yeah, Tyler Heineman, who's on the 40-man.
Tyler Heineman.
You also have Mark
Colesbury. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Whatever the heck his last name is.
I think Colesbury.
Yeah. Steven Scott's interesting. He only started catching a couple years ago. He's interesting. I think he's more so depth after. He's like the next layer of depth.
You know who else you have, though? You have Kyle Teal.
Yes, in Double-A. I was going to say you have Nathan Hickey, but I don't know what the plan with him really is because, like, is he going to catch? Are they going to move him somewhere? We still don't really know. I think one game he appeared in, like, a couple games. The only time I saw him in spring training, he was DHing, and it was like, so where is he playing in the field? Because that has been a question because his bat is, good. His bat's solid. His bat's fine. Nothing wrong with the bat. It's the defense behind the plate, and that's his question mark. And I don't think they'll I think if anything, maybe they try moving him to like a corner outfield spot because it's not going to move to first base. Tristan Casas has got first base locked up. So I think they might try and move him to an outfield spot, but I don't know. Maybe they will keep him behind the plate. Who knows, right? Maybe it doesn't hurt. But yeah, outside of the catcher spot, let's move on to. I think we're both kind of solid on the rotation with Giolito being hurt. It's Bayo, Pavetta, Crawford, Hal Whitlock. The bullpen, we really kind of had a discussion a little bit about our final bullpen spot because it was Kenley Jansen was like, okay, that's a lock. Chris Martin locked.
Assuming, real quick, assuming Jansen makes the roster, which is not 100% certainty right now. Yeah, it's very up in the air.
Assuming they're all healthy and they're not traded. Assuming.
No way they trade Jansen at this point.
You never know. Dylan Cease was just traded. So
that is very true. Good point.
You never know, right? The Padres are about to fly to Korea, and they traded for him. So, you never know. But so
Time
Jansen,
to get a passport.
Martin, Winkowski, Bernardino. He needs a passport anyways because he's got to play in Toronto.
Games.
Yeah, but so Jansen, Martin, Winkowski, Bernardino, Campbell, Slayton, and Weiser were all kind of locks for us, honestly.
But it wasn't easy.
No, but we kind of found them as being kind of even Campbell and Slayton. Well, Slayton definitely, but Campbell and Weiser even being a step ahead of your group who is fighting for this last spot in our eyes in terms of your Joely Rodriguez, your Chris Murphys, your Lucas Lakey's, your Brandon Walters, Cooper Criswell, Zach Kelly, Joe Jakes, who we never really considered, but he's on the 40-man, so you kind of have to. We end up going with Chris Murphy. I think they may be actually transitioning to him a reliever, but kind of like a swingman kind of reliever, not like a one inning guy necessarily. I don't think he starts, though. I think Walter, they still want to start him in AAA. And it kind of came down to they could probably use another lefty, and we don't really know about Lukey. We're not really that confident in him. And Joely just signed recently, and, like, is he back to his best? Because when he was pumping 97, 98 in spring last year, it was looking good, but he gets injured, and then he was throwing, 90 poo? Like,
fun fact, that was at the game he injured his oblique in spring training, unfortunately.
Yeah. But, yeah, so why do you have us going with Chris Murphy, Jason?
Well, I think first up, I mean, he's a lefty. So I know I look at the spring training numbers, and that's not really indicative of regular season performance, but they base core is very much of a manager. It's like, if you work hard in spring training, you're going to earn your spot. So, I mean, it's Murphy, sub 4 ERA, I guess. Strikeouts are up there, it looked like. I think he's also a long reliever, and I was very on the fence with him versus Criswell, because I think Criswell has a very good opportunity to make the roster, because if he put it this way, he's going to be making, I had a take earlier in the year that's like, he's going to make 5+ starts, make it 10. You could argue he'll make 10 starts, because this rotation is fragile. So I think Criswell is the ideal guy to make a spot start, because they're going to go to bullpen days whether you like it or not. The Sox are going to go to bullpen days more than you think. Will it be 2 days? I don't know. But Criswell's the guy who can make a spot start, and I think is going to be better off in AAA at the end of the day, because they can call him up and say, you're starting Whitlock has to skip his day.
They can keep him stretched out in AAA too.
Yeah, exactly. And Murphy, he kind of struggled I think you can speak more on behalf of this. He struggled a lot in the rotation last year in AAA. And
not necessarily his total fault, because that was like pitcher's nightmare in AAA last year. No offense to like Jorge Alfaro and Ronaldo Hernandez, but when like those two guys are catching and you're at a hitter-friendly ballpark, it can't be great. Like, and here's the thing: almost every pitcher that went from not almost every pitcher who went from AA to AAA last year that was good in AA wasn't good in AAA, and it wasn't just like a typical it wasn't your typical AA to AAA like struggles. It was like, it's like, what the heck is going on here? Because they were really, really good in AA, and now they're just struggling out of nowhere in AAA. And we saw it with Murphy before, like later in the year, like when his first like few appearances and whatnot, he was pitching well in the big leagues. He was pitching well, and then he goes back down to AAA for a couple of weeks, and then he struggles there, and then he comes back up for a couple of appearances, and then pitches well again back in the big leagues, and it's like, hold on, there's something in the water in AAA that's off. I think that's why they brought in, you look at the catchers they brought in, Roberto Perez, one of them, and then also we cover them, but Heineman, Colo, whatever the heck his last name, whatever the hell it is, I don't know. I'm never going to learn how to say it. I'm just going to accept it. And then, so I think, like, and Eli Moreira's still there. If he's going to be in AAA, AA, I'm not sure. But it's interesting catching group. Good, a lot of these, like, pretty good defensive catchers as well. And I think that's kind of what we're thinking with that last reliever spot, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have anything else to add.
Yeah. All right, so that's actually perfect timing, because they actually are going to be wrapping up. Our season preview will be going out next week, Wednesday, March 27th, so stay tuned for that, because that will be a kind of full season preview once we kind of have a better idea of what the opening day roster will look like. And for Jason, my name is Derrik. Thanks for tuning into the Fenway Focus, and we will see you next time.